Hello, this is Gala7, and today I'm going to show you how to make your own custom file format or binary, whatever. Well, first thing you need to know is what is a binary file format. File format is kind of like a way of storing data. Like say if I say hi here, and I open this with a hex editor, you can see that actually just says hi. Not very exciting, but if I go to something like music and look at just this random MP3 file, look at this hex data, you can see there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. There's like this random ID3 header, and then you see things like lame and FL Studio and tier and all this raw data. Now going back to our evil file format, first we must think of a way of what data we're trying to store. And so let's say we're trying to store a person, or a character for a game, or like an XML, or just like a form or something in general. So we're going to have the person's name, we're going to have the age, let's say we're also going to have favorite numbers. We're also going to say something like gender, and we're also going to say like favorite color. Lastly, we're going to what shall we do? We're going to store a Boolean that is likes pets or something. So let's kind of put this to use here, and we're going to make what we call a dummy file. And we're going to name the type of file we're going to make. We're going to call it a PRS file. We're just kind of making things up here, and I'll explain that later. But let's say our name is going to be Jimmy Fox. And the age is going to be something like let's just have an age of 21. Favorite numbers, now we're going to have a list of favorite numbers: 3, 7, 21, 27, and 77. Sure, why not? Let's just go with those numbers. Gender, we're going to say male. Favorite color, now this time we're not going to just say something like green. We're actually going to do something different, because we don't want to say like green or like green blue. We're going to get very specific into color. So we're going to go to colorpicker.com and try and discover our color that way. So we're just going to go with and hang on a second. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to select a value. I'm just going to select this like purple, and I don't know if you can store a hex value or not, so we're going to convert this to an integer. So we're going to go to hexadecimal. We're going to copy this here, and so we can identify that Fox's favorite color is 131276648. But yet if I were to go just mix this up or something, and I were to go decimal to hex, we can put in this decimal value, get out this hex value, and then convert it back, and we'll get Jimmy Fox's favorite color all over again. And basically what a custom file, all it is about storing data. And likes pets, we're going to say yes. Alright, now that we kind of have our dummy file, we need to kind of make a structure for our new file format. So what we're going to do is go to Visual Studio. And I'll come back once that finishes loading. Alright, since Visual Studio is loaded, I'm going to go ahead and make a new project. Time to wait for it to load. Alright, and I'm going to go ahead and choose a console application. And I'm going to call it Evil File, just for fun. And when I hit browse, I'm going to browse for my place to put it. I'm going to go in Evil File. Sure, I'm going to hit select folder. And I'm going to leave this checked so everything is not everywhere. And I'm going to go hit OK. And so this will create a new file class once it finishes creating. You can see it starting to create all the necessary files and everything. This can take some time depending on your PC. But once it finishes loading, we're going to just do a quick test to make sure everything's working by typing in console.writeLine. Then we're going to run the application. And you'll notice that I'll give you to press any key to continue. That means it worked. So I can go ahead and delete that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make two new files. And this isn't completely necessary, but I'm going to do it to keep things organized so that we can easily add new structures to our application, game, etc., and the tools that go along with it. So I'm going to go hit class. I'm going to call this structures.cs. I'm also going to make a new file here. I'm going to call this structure tools.cs. But the thing about this structure tools is I'm actually going to make this structure tools a static class. And I'll explain why we're going to make it static later, but for now just take my word on you should have it be a static class. Now in structures, we're going to kind of plan out our structures. I'm going to label this structures class here. I'm going to aim it the custom file format for our game/app/thing. And now we're going to actually get into planning how our structure is going to work. So we're going to make a region for our type of file, region PRS file. I'm going to type the file, name the file type we're going to create PRS because we're going to deal with people here, like storing people almost for our application. So I'm just going to call it PERS. And in here, I'm going to just describe it as region for all the PERS structures. Okay. Now let's actually see how we're going to make a structure here. We're first going to define a structure by typing in the keyword struct. then we get to name our struct. I'm going to call it PERS file. Then use a curly brackets, and in here is going to be where all the magic is going to happen. PERS main format structure. It's always good to use the triple comments to label your code. So you have interactive documentations that can be read by Visual Studio or whatever I do use. And let's look at our ideas. We start out with a name, but we're going to do something different to start out our file. It's always wise to start out your file with a 4-char array of magic called a magic header. So I'm going to call this char magic. I'm going to label it the PRS magic header. And let me show you examples of this. So if I were to just go in my documents and go into, I don't know, something like this NDS file. Let me open a hex editor. Well, this may be a bad example, but when you go in some files, you do seem to have some sort of SketchUp Model 8. But what I personally prefer is, like, see, I also use this as an example, see, EPNG or whatever. The point is they start out with a 4-char magic header, usually. Sometimes they don't, usually they have their own thing, but for now we're just going to call our header a PRS. And this is optional, but I like to do this because just in case you want to have this format inside another, you need to know how big it is. So we're going to make a uint32 file size. Now if your file plans to be super big, then you can use a uint64, but a uint32 is pretty big already and tends to get the job done. And I'm going to call this right here the file size. And now we're actually going to get started after we do one more thing here. And I'm going to call this the uint16 because we may not need other things. And version, once again, this is optional, but it would help for reverse compatibility if you make modifications to your file format. So I'm going to call this version. And now we're going to actually get into the structures of how our thing is going to work. So the first thing that's going to be is a string for the name. So we're going to type in here string name, name of person. And then the next thing we're going to have is the age. And we're just going to assume they're not going to be like super old or not bigger than 255. So they're going to be, but it may be someone from the past. So we're going to use a uint16 age. Now you can always go hefty and use uint32s, but what's wrong with that is the more times you do that, the bigger your file size will always be. And so we're going to do age of person. And now we also say favorite numbers. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, we're going to make an array of uint32s. Let's assume their favorite numbers can't be super big. But if, just in case, we're going to make it uint64, and we're going to use this for an array. Favorite numbers. Numbers of person. Anyways, once we have our favorite numbers here, we're going to see what else we need to have. The favorite color. Now, remember, we're not storing it as a string, but we're storing it as a big integer. And colors are stored in uint32s. So favorite color. Favorite color of person. So we got our favorite colors down, and we're going to do, oh, we forgot their gender. So we're going to use a byte for the gender, because a person's gender can only be so many things. Of course, you can have a string if you're non-binary, or if there's a list, you can still have a byte. I mean, 255 should be enough to choose from, and you'll never deal with something that's just straight up ones or zeros. Of course, you can use a boolean if you really want to, but regardless, things will be stored in bytes no matter what you do. So we're going to use gender of person. And then likes pets, no, they don't, just yes some. And we're going to do a boolean, likes pets if person likes pets. So we already have a pretty simple kind of structure here. Now this is a structure, but what if we were to make something that involves a structure in a structure? Now what I mean by that is they have a list of friends, and their list of friends has a name and age. So we're going to have friend's name, age. And we're going to just have a thing here that says the number of friends that they have. So that way we can see how many of these things that they have. So in our dummy file, we're just going to say John 22, Lucy 31, and Jim, which is going to be 21, same age as Jimmy Fox. Now, how do we do that? Because we can't just store two values in one. No, we can't, but what we can do is make a new structure. So we're going to name struct friends. Friend. And this will be our structure for each friend. And for each friend, we're going to have the string name, which is going to be the name of the friend. And we're going to have the age, which is going to be the uint16 age again, because we're not going to have too much people that are that old. And that's going to be the age of the friend. And now, when we use friend, we can use the friend here, and we'll call those friends friends. Friends of the person. I probably spelled friend right. Did I spell friend right? friend. Yes, I did. I always mix up the spelling of friend. But in the next tutorial, I'm going to tell you how to get this structure, like how you're going to convert something like this into this structure that you can use to get a binary format. And again, one of the main reasons we're going to use binary to store our data is so that it's easier to load, easier to read, because text parsing can get a little slow, especially if you have a lot of data. And text parsing would be very easy for a hacker to edit, which you may not want. But if you have your own binary format, it can add some extra guessing for the person to do. So I'll see you in the next tutorial, and hope this has helped you so far.